All right, we're discussing what we would want in an activity that requires students to graph a linear inequality in two variables. Clark?
Yeah, I would want a line that separates the two regions, um, a way to draw it solid or probably dashed to indicate if the line is included or not in the solution, and then a way to graphically choose which side of the line the rest of the solutions would be.
Any deviations from that? Seems like the expected answer. Okay, how would you actually expect for that to work in Donut? So, what would a student do when you say, I would want them to graph a line? How would that be affected in Donut?
They could choose 2 points to graph the line.
So the 2 points already there where are the 2 points coming from?
Are we giving them an equation to graph? I mean, an inequality to graph?
Yes.
Okay, so then we can ask them to either provide the 2 points or provide the slope and the point, whatever they're going to use. Can we
Mhm.
give them option?
Yeah, I think having the 2 points be there already is, I don't think that that lowers the benefit of the exercise.
Okay. So we're imagining there being a graph. So obviously the question's at the top. Then underneath it, I'm imagining there being a graph, and there's 2 points already on there. Virginia?
I think it would be cool if they just clicked a button and it drew the points on the graph. Like,
Yeah, you can do
Yeah,
that.
Would it
or
be cool
intercoordinates.
or appropriate? Meaning, is it worth me changing what I have planned, or does it add to, does it inform
I think it should be a
your understanding of
bonus.
what the student knows, whether they click a button or not? That's the question.
That is a very good question. I guess maybe because it involves a cool component, maybe we save it for the end of it.
Fair. But pedagogically, I
No,
wanted to model these are the types of things you see, you have something on paper, and you say, okay, well, I want some approximation of this to live within Donut. Um, David Farmer has this quote that I think I'm going to butcher, and Matt Bulkin seems to relate quite frequently that the platform defines or allows you to write things that you wouldn't be able to in other platforms. So there are things you can do on regular paper that you probably can't do in Donut yet, and there are things that you can do in Donut that you wouldn't be able to do on paper, at least not conveniently. So just because we have the standard idea of this is how the procedure should work on paper, does not mean that it should work the exact same way in Donut. Although in this case, that's exactly what happens. That you can mirror the process that you take on paper to be pretty close to what you can do in Donut. Valid pedagogical Okay, I'm going to ignore Virginia for now. Um, how would you imagine selecting or switching or telling Donut that the line needs to be solid or dashed? So you have 2 points. You can move the 2 points around. And once the 2 points are in the correct locations, whatever that means, how do you imagine the student engages with the activity next?
You could have a choice: solid line, dashed line,
Like a
and
multiple choice
yeah,
question? Okay.
a little drop down box. Yeah.
Are there options to do like a line or a line segment also between 2 points?
Yes.
Okay, so we would do that first and then pick that whether it's dashed or solid separately or at the
So
same time.
maybe I'm missing something here. What would be the benefit of having a line segment option?
I don't know. I'm just asking.
Okay.
No, no, yeah.
If I think about what I would expect the student to do if they didn't have the computer, I'm thinking that they're going to either try to set the inequality as an equality to get the slope and the intercept so they can draw the line, or they're going to take points, X values, and get the Y values so that they have 2 points. And once they do that, then they need to make that decision of whether they're going to have a solid line or a dotted line. And so in my mind, when I'm looking at this, they're kind of building out this form of all these pieces before they actually get to the graph. And I think that's different than what we're kind of talking about. But that choice of solid versus dotted is showing up before I'm worrying about drawing the picture.
I'm
Okay.
actually going to respond to something that Spencer said in the chat, and because I think there's a couple of things here. Can we have the question first? I think the way that the question is posed has an effect on this too. And related to that, I think the drop down, rather than being dash line or solid line, should be boundaries included, boundaries not included.
I shared the question. Obviously, we can change it, but that's one variant of the question. In fact, that is not the variant we will be using. We will be using.
Just to a rebuttal. I agree. I think that would be good to say included or not included, but I think I would also ask the students if they know how to uh, portray that the boundary is included or not included. So would the line be dashed or solid? Because those are two separate questions.
Yeah, they're very different questions.
So hopefully, what I've modeled so far is we haven't even gone to donut yet. This is all happening on a piece of paper for me. Before I even get to writing things in donut, I'm having conversations about. I didn't even consider whether students understand that a solid line indicates that the boundary points are included in the solution set versus not. So hopefully all of that, well, that's an easy multiple choice question to throw in, and we can do that. But yeah, the goal is to first sketch something out, see what happens, and then start building it. Okay, so we've decided that there's going to be some selection process for the type of line and whether it's, what language we're using for that selection. Then you're back. So far you have 2 points. You have, say, a dash line. What do you expect or hope to happen next? That the student does what to indicate this is where the solutions are?
Maybe
It
they
would be
place a
great.
point, or yeah,
Sorry, 2 people were talking at the
yeah.
same time. I heard place a
Did they
point
already
and
click on the correct side to shape?
okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of like placing a point on one side or of the line or the other, like not on the line itself. Just because like uh that's a good way for students to test which side is
Mhm.
satisfying the inequality anyway. Because like you pick a point, if it works, you have the right side. If it doesn't, you don't have the correct side.
So would
Now we get to use your button.
would placing 1 point correctly convey the notion that that entire region contains solutions as opposed to that point being the solution? Or are you imagining that you place the point and if it's in the... Well, no, I will stop. My first question stands. Does placing a single point or 3 points or 17 points indicate that the solutions live in that entire region, not just those 17 points that you placed?
Yeah,
I think
I would want the whole side of the region shaded, but this really comes down to where the students are. What are you trying to test? Because if they understand that the solutions are going to be everything on one side of the line, possibly the line itself, then placing the point is fine. I don't know how I don't see how that's different from, for example, clicking on one side and shading it, except that the visual indication, I do like the visual indication of not having to have a point.
Well,
Let
I
me
just had a
ask.
point. Sorry.
I was
Let,
going to
let me
say
ask the
that
following question. I'm a student in your intermediate algebra class. I plot the points on the line correctly. I use the correct style of the line, that it should be dashed, and I place 1 point in the region where the solutions live. What do you grade me?
On paper you're talking about.
Yes.
It would need to be more than a point. It would need
Yeah.
to be a point and saying something like this side of the line.
Sure. So the point alone does not convey that I, as the student, understand that it's not just this 1 point, it's a whole bunch of other things on the same side. So then this
So
becomes a
I think
question of how do you negotiate this with the capabilities of Donut? Sorry,
so.
Spencer?
Then I think what I think this was Clark was suggesting is that like if a student places a point and then they can look at the coordinates of that point, that is a useful process step that allows them to determine should this side be shaded or no. And so like if they just gave me a point, they're not done, I don't think, but I think that might be a useful process thing.
Yeah, this discussion is not meant to start having religious wars, but again, different people will have different bars that students need to clear. Uh, this just gets to the heart of let's start thinking before we start creating things. So I have made an activity that I will assume satisfies all of you. And because I'm lazy, I also told myself what the intercepts are, so I'm not doing arithmetic in real time. So I want us to graph the solutions to this inequality. The intercepts are here. I've placed them where the intercepts are. I will take Clark's suggestion eventually, but I will say that the line needs to be dashed. And I will shade on this side and say incorrect. Now, how do you imagine I change my answer?
Click on the other side.
Click on the other side or, aha, interesting.
Ooh, unclick.
Click the same side again, right? Would be to turn that off.
Okay.
And obviously you can move the points. I am curious what happens if you move the points and you don't unclick. Aha, okay.
The logic is connected. The individual graphical features are not. So you can move the points independent of the type of line you have. You can shade the region independent of where the points are. You can indicate all three things separately.
Can I actually ask a question about that then?
Sure.
Can you reverse the position of the 2 points?
Yeah.
Drag them around? I want to see what happens to which side it is. Aha.
And now it's marked correct. Fair? Now we build this together. Okay, so I will do some quick things just to get us started. So obviously we need a graph. What shall we place inside the graph?
2 points.
So point. I'm going
I have a question about point list.
Sure.
I was trying to use it in one of our earlier problems when we had a bunch of points that we had to write down. I thought it would be easier to use, but I couldn't extract individual points from the point list. Is there a way to do that?
Did you try using the square bracket index notation?
Yep.
So it might be one of these, I can't remember off the top of my head, but some components, like array components, have sort of more dimensions than you would expect. And so since I do have a hard time remembering that, and this might be the case and it might not, if I think that might be the case, I'll just test it by like starting off with two, one more array. So did you?
No, I'm just
Okay,
continuing
I'll
to
test it
type.
offline and then I'll let you know in the chat.
I have never used point list. I just maybe stay away from lists only because I know I think Spencer and Dwayne have been having this conversation about what is possible within the donut universe when it comes to lists and arrays. And I think that's a place that's scary, but Virginia's far more experienced with writing donut. And so I'm happy she's at least able to look into it for you. Okay, back to maybe perhaps this activity. So we have 2 points, user point 1 and user point 2, and notice that they're both on top of each other. So what would be a reasonable thing to do at this stage?
I would honestly stick them at like some stupid number that is not relevant to the problem at all. Like, I don't know, pi and
I'm going to use nice integer coordinates because integer coordinates make life easy. Can you move the point to pi? Sure. Does it improve the activity at all from a pedagogical standpoint? No, but apparently coolness is a worthwhile endeavor. So yes, you can move them wherever you like. I find that this is my personal opinion. If I'm trying to test whether someone knows how to shade on the correct side of the correctly chosen line, I don't care that they can operate on fractions at that stage. That's not the thing I'm testing here. So I want things to be integer coordinates to the extent possible, if that's not what I'm testing. I agree. I don't want my students to shut down because they feel scared about 23 over 11. So the goal is to just test whether they actually can do the problem if I make it easy for them to enter the garden. Okay, now these points are fixed, but if I move them around, notice that eventually I'm going to have to graph the x-intercept and the y-intercept, or I'm going to have to graph some points on a line. Is it easy to graph exactly 0, 2?
You could do a track 2 grid.
I could do that. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to use this new thing that we might not have talked about, constraint to grid. Why is it not auto-completing?
I think there's not a T in that. I think it's constrain.
Ah, thank you. Oh, this guy is capitalized. So now when I move this point, it only goes to integer coordinates, and that's nice. And in fact, I'm going to copy this and place it here as well. Okay, what next? What machinery do we need to build? We have 2 points.
I think you should add a grid.
Anyone remember how we do that? It's something to do with a graph.
I mean, you add it, yeah, if you just put a space and type the word grid.
You can also specify how big you want your grid. So 1 to 1 will make it like so. You can make it 5 to 1. and then it will change your grid lines. Or you can leave it undefined, and then it will just modify things to be whatever they need to be based on the scale. Okay. What else do we need? What are the students doing with this grid and these points?
We're going to want a line between the points.
Okay. So at some point of now, do we want the line visible to the students?
Probably not until they've done something.
All right. So maybe we should put things inside of a setup until we need them again. And maybe we should leave the setup empty for now so we know that things actually work. So we need a line, and we need to call it a name. Let's call it user line. Through. What are the 2 points that this line passes through?
User point 1 and user point 2.
All right, that seems to be the equation, and if I move it around, the equation changes. Okay, what else?
So you want them to decide whether the line is dotted or solid.
Okay, but what are we asking them to do with the 2 points before we move on?
We need to define what the line is that we're trying to create, right?
So we need a question.
Yeah.
So we need to graph the following inequality. Now, what is that inequality? How do we come up with an inequality that's reasonable in my context with nice integer intercepts? You can graph them. You can create these lines however you like. But I'm not testing students' ability to graph difficult to graph lines here. That's not the goal.
So if we're giving something in like standard form, ax plus by equals c or less than or equal to c or whatever, we should want b to divide a and c. And
Okay.
if we're expecting them to put it into like a slope intercept form, which is how most students I would expect would try to graph something like this.
Okay, so how would you build that?
Make A and C multiples of B. So
Okay.
pick a random B
Mhm.
and then pick 2 random numbers that will multiply B to make A and C.
I'm
Yeah,
going to fight against that and say I'm going to start with my answers and not worry about what A, B, and C end up being. I'm going to say I want nice intercepts, so I will choose my intercepts to be nice. And then work backwards and say, oh, here's the equation of a line, because the line has to pass through those 2 intercepts. Fair?
Yeah, I was thinking too, like after after we were thinking about how to generate those multiples, that you would end up wanting to create like a constraint on the multiples that you could have, because you don't want to have like a line with slope 17 or something.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it sounds like the intercepts idea is a lot easier to work with.
And I ordinarily wouldn't come to that conclusion until I had tried what you were doing or you suggested. Later on, there's a problem with the graph, and I'm not going to sort of put the cart before the horse, but later on you would have said, shoot, I wish I had determined my line through nice intercepts as opposed to doing the scaling business. So there's a reason, donut justified reason for why you might not want to do that. So anyone remember how we can generate random numbers? Oh. Donut seems aware. So select from sequence. I'm going to call my sequence intercept. I'm going to pick numbers from -5 to 5. Looking ahead to what we will need to do with these things, what number would be a good one to exclude as an intercept?
Sorry, is this going to be the y-intercept or the x-intercept?
Both.
0.
So we can exclude 0. And now I can answer Spencer's question. How do I pick two numbers from the sequence of numbers?
Num select.
Num to select equals 2. And now the intercepts, the two numbers that get selected, are both called intercept. That's bad naming. So what we should probably do here is create an x-intercept. And how would we gather the first selected number?
Intercept bracket 1.
Yep. And then I want the y-intercept to be intercept bracket 2.
Can I jump in and point something cool out here?
Sure.
So one thing I didn't really harp on much when we were talking about randomization is when you do num to select and you select multiple, you get the exclusivity for free. So if you know you want 5 parameters that are independent, if you're like me or Anurag, you spend a couple years doing 5 select from sequences and 4 of them have like increasing numbers of exclusions. And then you realize, oh wait, I'll really get this if I just select 5 from one set. So that might save you lots of headaches.
One other thing that if you're trying to ensure that if you're writing a factoring question or you want the greatest common factor to be 1, there's an attribute called coprime, which does that for free. So you can guarantee things to be relatively prime, set-wise. So if you pick 5 numbers, they're all relatively prime. Okay, so we've named these two x-intercepts. Now, the student, the user is going to give you an input, but there ought to be something to compare against to determine whether what the student has entered is correct or not. So what exactly do we do with these 2 points?
Create a slope.
To do what?
To compare to the slope of the solution line.
Are we just comparing the slope?
Oh wait,
Two lines can have the same slope and still be different.
Yeah. So we'll need to compare the slopes and
Can we just compare 2 lines? Can we in the setup, create a line that's call it boundary line or solution line?
I'm going to call it equation because I called it equation earlier.
All right.
Through, and what are the 2 points?
Zero
X-intercept, Y-intercept.
zero.
Pardon me? Aw, no one wants to use x-intercept and y-intercept? Fine.
I can't believe you're actually grumpy that we didn't fall for that.
Well, we don't get to see mistakes that I make and then tear my hair out. That's why I'm bald now. Okay, so that's going to create a graphical representation of the line, right? I can plot this line here. That's the line that's been chosen. So the x-intercept is 0, 1. I'm sorry, negative 1, 0. And the y-intercept is 0, negative 5. But how would I know that the user has selected this as well? One way I think was already suggested was compare the two equations. How else could we do this?
Could we make a function the same way?
I don't know. Could I make a function named equation f through, and because this is going to be the same thing as above, I'm just going to copy paste. And what were you planning on doing with that function?
Evaluate it at the points that the student has chosen.
So do we need the equation then?
I don't know.
Excellent answer. Never, ever, ever delete something. Just leave it be. And if you don't need it, just delete it later or throw it in a setup tag and no one's going to yell at you. Or comment it out, but don't delete stuff only to have to bring it back again later. Okay, so we have a function. The first thing I want us to do is verify whether the user moved points are on the line. So how do we do that?
We want to take their points and plug them into
Well, yes,
our,
exactly.
our
How do we do
function.
that?
Double dollar sign.
Double dollar sign.
Equation, right? Wait, which one is the student generated and which one is ours? I forget.
Well, there's a user line, and then there's equation. And equation f is the name of the function. So Spencer suggesting equation f, which is a function evaluated at $user point one dot x. So the syntax here is you evaluate a function using double dollar sign, and then the thing that you're evaluating at just gets a reference, so that's just a single dollar sign. We want the x-coordinate of the first user placed point. And what do we hope for this to turn out to be, if things are correct?
User point y
equals user point one dot y.
And so you want to award when that's true.
All right, so for now, could I turn this into a Boolean? So it's false, false, false. If I take this and I move it here, I'm on the line. Why is it still false? My point is on the line. Don't do it, Virginia. Don't do it.
Is it the wrong point?
Yes. Notice that this is 0.2 and this is 0.1. If I move 0.1, hooray. So how do I modify this? Because this is just 0.1. This is just going to return a true or a false if point 1 is on the line.
So we want an and where we've changed it to point 2.
So point 1 is on the line, false. Point 2 is on the line, true. Fair? So this so far tells us whether the student has placed the points in the right location. Now what's the next task?
Decide if it's dotted or solid.
Okay, so when I demoed it, there was a little... I'll just give that away. That component is called a Boolean input. So if I have a Boolean input, that's basically just a toggle. You can check or uncheck. Check means true. Uncheck means false. So what I would like for you to do is go to the documentation and tell me what I should be doing here. For the Boolean input, I need two, obviously, one for the solid line, one for the dashed line. We're ignoring Clark's suggestion for now. If time presents, we'll build it in later. But I think it was a valid suggestion.
I don't understand why I went on your example, I didn't understand why you have two checkboxes, because isn't it an either or? You're either picking solid or dashed.
Correct. And I had that originally, and 2 semesters worth of student feedback said, I don't know what you want me to do with this box. Because what does the checked value mean? Or what's the label that I place on this Boolean input? So if I say solid, imagine it said solid. You have to find out how to say solid. Then if I uncheck it, does that immediately mean dashed? What if I don't want a line?
Could you do choice input and have solid and solid line, dashed line?
Sure, but you already know about choice input, so I want us to learn about Boolean input now.
Okay.
So go to the documentation, learn about Boolean input, and tell me what to do.
Ooh, you could make a toggle button.
I could. So I see.
Sorry, I copied and pasted the anchor, but you can put it somewhere else.
Okay. For accessibility purposes, I'm going to leave it outside. So I need a label of dashed. And what should the starting value of this Boolean input be? Should we start off checked or should we start off unchecked?
Probably
Unchecked.
unchecked.
Because it's a Boolean, you say that it's false. So now we have a Boolean input. I want another one, and I'm going to call that solid. And the label is going to be similarly indicative.
I have never done my prefills that way.
Oh,
That's very strange. I didn't even realize that you could sugar it in like that.
mm-hmm.
Okay. Hmm.
Now, I have this line in front of me. Do we still... Well, I'll keep it. I don't want to delete it. So we have a dashed line, we have a solid line. But nothing's happening because we haven't hooked up this Boolean input to the line that passes through between these two things. Well, that was going to be my next thing. So right now, you can select both solid and dashed. How do you make it so that if dashed is, or if solid is selected and you select dashed, this turns off? So now I'd like you to go to the documentation and look up something called update value. And tell me how you even theoretically could use that here.
Anurag, can you Slack me what you have so far?
Can I send this to you? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Can I put it in chat?
Uh, sure.
Okay, I'll send it to you on Discord. I don't have you on Slack.
Either way is fine.
There you go.
Thank you.
Anyone find an attribute that maybe has anything to do with triggers?
Trigger when objects clicked is the one that I'm fiddling with at the moment.
We will need that for later.
Yeah, it's funny because even though you think of you as the user like clicking on a checkbox, it's actually that attribute applies to only graphical objects. So if it's something that's like outside a graph that you're interacting with, you would just use trigger with and then give the reference of the object. So any change to the state of that the object reference would trigger it.
Gotcha.
So I'll give this one away because I don't
Call
have
action.
call action would create a button, which we will maybe perhaps deal with later as well. But for now, I'm going to stick with trigger value, and this I'm going to say is going to be triggered. When should we be triggering it?
Either dashed. Oh, I was going to use trigger with. But I guess if you did trigger when, you could do like dash dot updated value or whatever that one is called.
I'm going to make it
Value
even
change.
simpler. I want this to be triggered whenever dashed is true. That's why I used a Boolean input and not a choice input. So with choice inputs, you have to say if this was the selected choice, and then you have to use indices, and I never remember how to use that syntax. That's why I was turning down Jennifer's attempt to use choice inputs. Boolean input's either true or it's false. So it's simpler to deal with in the future. So I want to trigger something whenever dashed is true. What do you think the target value of this specific trigger should be? If dashed is true, what should be changed about some target value?
Solid equals false.
So here, the target is just the component, or not the component, but is it a component? The component named solid, and now you're saying there's going to be a new value assigned to it. What is that new value?
False.
I want solid to turn false whenever dashed is marked true. Now, one other thing. Because trigger or update values, well, here you have to tell it that the type is Boolean. I'm running a little behind, so I'll leave the discussion of theory for later. I also need the trigger to work the other way. So what changes do I need to make here?
Change dash to solid and solid to dashed.
Yep. So now if I click dashed, hooray, solid turns that off, dashed turns that off, and now we cannot have both on at the same time, but we can have them both off at the same time. So that I think is a good behavior to have. Okay, we haven't yet told the student what they're going to be graphing, so could we maybe take a pause here and think about how to generate that inequality for the student?
Could you do something where you randomly select number 1, 2, 3, or 4 and have that state dictate which way the inequality is going, and if it's less than or equal to, or just less than, like,
that's going to be
there's a more
homework for
elegant
you.
version. Okay.
This one is going to be a strict less than inequality. But I still need to be able to tell the student, hey, solve this inequality. So how do I generate that inequality? And then the homework for later, should you wish to engage in it, will be make this random. So we'll get into conditional content soon, and that might be one way that you can throw in the operator that you're the comparison symbol that you need. Okay, so back to the question. How do I tell the student this is the inequality I wish for you to grade? For you to graph?
Are you asking us to generate the inequality, or are you
Yes, the
asking
student
us?
needs to know what I'm going to ask them to graph, right? The student doesn't know that yet. So what do I display here for the student to graph? What's the question they're answering? And as a review, we selected an x-intercept. Where do we go? We selected an x-intercept for the line. We selected a y-intercept for the line. We have the equation of the line. We have a function that we can plug things into and then determine if points are on the line indeed or not. So maybe we can use those things. Maybe we have to come up with something entirely different. How do we come up with the equation if I gave you 2 points?
Well, we have the equation of the line that the 2 points generate.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the equation of the line that we set up. It's just called equation, right?
Mm-hmm. Why is
So
nothing ever
after
changing?
following equation, we have, but
So if we want it to come out to be nice, even numbers, so we want an equation of the type cx minus dy equals e, for instance,
Sure, if that's the form you want to give the user the
or
equation in.
less than, not equal to. But then we can just generate random numbers for C
In the
and
interest of time, I'm going to pause you there. We have an x-intercept and we have a y-intercept. Let's use those.
Mhm.
Instead of generating a, b, and c, how
No,
would we
no,
come
I'm
up
not
with the
saying,
equation? Go ahead.
but do we want the equation to be like the same all the time? I was thinking you could
The equation will
um,
change because the intercepts change. The intercepts are coming from a select.
mhm.
So everyone will have 2 different x-intercept or different x-intercepts and different y-intercepts. Now, if I give you the 2 intercepts, how do we come up with the equation?
So, I mean, I would want to just pull $equation dot equation, or maybe dot LaTeX.
That'll give you the equation. It's not an inequality,
Okay.
though. I can't tell the student to graph this inequality.
Right. So I was thinking we could start with that. And then, I mean, I was thinking about pulling out the LaTeX and replacing the equal sign with the inequality sign, but that feels inelegant.
You can do that with extract operator. You can do that, but yes, I agree there's an easier way to do it, which is to just write the equation. If I give you 2 points, we ought to be able to write the equation of the line, right? The nice thing about picking intercepts is coming up with the equation is, and in the interest of time, I'm just going to start copy pasting things so this doesn't take us too long.
Yeah, I would say, we don't need as much time for accessibility as perhaps, like we could go a little bit longer with this if you need to.
Okay. What would you think about this? The equation of a line, if I know the x and the y intercept, is the product of the 2 coordinates, and then You throw the y-intercept with the x, the independent variable, and the x-intercept with a dependent variable. And it equals the product. So if I replace the equal with a less than, does that give me the inequality? Wait, why is this bad? Oh, right. I didn't define, I think when I did it earlier, I defined the x-intercept as a point. So we don't need dot y dot x. There we go. And I would argue this is perhaps less painful than extracting the equal symbol and then replacing it with either a greater than or a less than, depending on what you wish to do. One might be more modular. I don't know. But I think it's easier maybe to just come up with the inequality. Okay, what needs to be harnessed next? So we have our inequality, and I can move this to within the setup because I don't need it visible anymore. Virginia?
You want to take a short break.
Oh. Okay.
Anybody else?
Shall we take a short break? 4:10?
Yeah.
All right, we'll resume at 4:10. Alrighty, are we ready to go? Okay, to recap, we have 2 points. We have a line going through them. We have a function going through them, so we can evaluate whether the points that we've chosen are on the line or not. We have a way to toggle between dashed and solid, but what exactly is this behavior affecting?
The style number
Of what?
of the line of the line.
Which line?
User
Good
line,
question.
right?
Pardon me?
User line, yeah.
Have we graphed a user line?
Not yet.
So what should we do?
We need to.
I have.
All right, so what should we place within the graph?
Line. Oh wait, we've already defined it, right? So we can just write user. Oh no, but we have to do the style.
So if I do this, then I get this line. Now, how do I affect the behavior of this line based on whether it's dashed or if it's solid? The line will always be solid.
You have to go back up to your setup and change the style format. Or can you not do it there? Do you have to do it within the graph?
Is it extend? Is it like an update and then extend? Update value?
I'm going to do something that we haven't yet discussed. Or maybe, have we talked about hide attributes?
No.
Okay, excellent. This is something that's custom made for a hide attribute. So imagine I have a paragraph that says, show me. And if I update, then I see show me. But if I say within that paragraph, hide equals true, well, then it's hidden. But if I set hide to false, then it's going to be visible. Fair?
Mm-hmm.
Now, could we toggle between different styles? Yes. I don't want to do that only because I want you to see how hide could be used in a graphical setting. We will toggle between other things soon. So here, what I'm going to do is create a new line. In fact, I'm going to create 2 lines. So I'm going to have a line named dashed line. And when should this be hidden? I don't want the dashed line to be visible when what is true.
Solid.
And dash. Yeah.
When solid,
So
just
you
like
could
so?
just go hide $ solid, yeah.
Okay. And what is this line passing through? It's a line. We have to give it through points or a point and a slope.
Your 2 user points.
So I'm going to challenge you to remember. So I could have just used user point 1 and user point 2 and I encourage you to do the same. But for the sake of reviewing things, how could I find the slope here? Because that's another way we can determine a line.
Divide minus user point. Minus user point 2 dot y.
So I could
Is there
do the
a slope
computation
attribute?
for slope. Is there a slope attribute?
I mean property
Of
Oh.
what?
of user line.
So
Mhm.
user line is
Why
right
just
there.
through user point 1 and user point 2?
I know, but I want to remind us of properties. There are many, many ways of doing these things. I'm just trying to incorporate a bunch of different things.
Slope equal user line dot slope?
That's what I was trying to get us to remember. That properties are appended to the name of the component with a dot, and if you do that, oops, forgot to close it. So you could have just used through user point 1 and user point 2, but this was just an opportunity to remember that you can also extract slopes if you define the equation. So this is perhaps one reason to do that. We could have also have ignored the through and the slope and just wrote like so. Multiple ways of doing the same thing. So the line should be dashed, and it should be hidden when solid is true. So if I mark solid true, the line is hidden. If I mark solid... But the line isn't dashed. How do I make it dashed? I want the dashed line to be dashed.
Style number, I don't remember which one.
So
Line
this
style.
is
Line
new.
style.
There's actually a
Line
line
style.
style now that you can finally, without having to do a style definition, which was painful in the old days.
Nice.
Now, Dwayne has finally given in and just given us the ability to modify some things. Not colors, for good reason, which Virginia will talk about later, but aspects of the line. So line width, I think you can change as well. You can make it really wide or not. So I won't worry about line width for now. And we also need this for a solid line. And here I want it to be hidden whenever dashed is true. It needs to be through the same points, but what should be the line style here?
Solid? Or just don't have anything there?
Sure. Oops. Now why are... Come on. Why are both lines visible?
Oh,
Because
because
neither
neither one
box is
is.
currently checked.
Yeah.
Maybe you should make the initial value of solid be true.
So back... where did the booleans go? So here... But then both will be selected. Or are you saying just make one of them true to begin with?
Yes, make one of them true to begin with. Or
But I
make both
want
of them
the
false.
student to make the claim. I want the student to have to pick.
And if they haven't picked anything, there shouldn't be a line there at all. So
I
it
agree.
should be hidden when neither is chosen.
Yeah, maybe the condition should be
So
hidden equals not dashed or hidden equals.
So can I say solid
not.
equals false? And this is hidden
Yeah.
when dashed equals false. Dashed equals false is the same as not dashed. So now you don't see either of them. If I check solid, well, a dash line appears.
Yeah, you got to reverse those.
So this should be what? Solid. This should be
Yeah.
dashed. Which is confusing because the names are now reversed, but that's okay. We'll keep moving in the interest of time. Fair?
Mhm.
Now, this line was graphed originally just to make sure that the equation was getting graphed. Should we be graphing the answer checking line?
No.
So I'll take this line away. And now just to do a sanity check, what is this equation? Oh, that's the current equation here. should be a dash line. And how do I know if this is correct?
We need an award when.
All right, so I need to have an answer. I need to have an award condition, and I need to know when to make that award condition come true. So when are we giving the user credit so far?
The Boolean that's on line 33.
So I can give this a name, and this will be points on correct line. So award when points on correct line is true, and what else must be true for the student to receive credit?
I guess you want dashed to be true.
And dashed to be true. Do I need solid to be false?
No, it already magically does that.
So this is where putting in the effort earlier to make sure only one of them can be turned on at a time pays off. You simplify your Boolean logic later. So just to check, -1, -5, we have a verification that the Boolean is true. If I select this right now, it's going to be false or incorrect because I haven't chosen a line. Solid line, incorrect. Dash line, correct. And how do you imagine?
Do a match.
Pardon me?
You could do a matched partial on that answer so that they get some points for doing
I'll leave that up
pieces.
to you as the author. I am grumpy when it comes to awarding partial credit. I often find that students optimize for 70% if I allow partial credit. They just say, well, I got 70%, I'm leaving. I don't care that I didn't understand the rest. So I don't give students partial.
I just want them to know that they're on the right track.
Well, that's why there's 3 others of them in the group. But point taken. There are places where it's appropriate to have partial credit. I find it hard to be convinced that when there's a group of 4, myself and a learning assistant in there, that there should be conversation about defending answers and asking someone else whether their understanding is reasonable or not. Okay, what's next?
Now we need to do the fill.
Okay, and how do we do that? I will cut things short and say there's no component that allows it. So there's going to be some hackery needed. There is no nice, easy way to just say, if I click on the left-hand side, it shades the left-hand side, and if I click on the right-hand side, it shades the right-hand side. But by doing this, we learn about new components.
Is there a component that will collect a mouse click? Like a click on the...
So that's under update value, and I think Spencer was talking about it earlier. Or was it Clark? I can't remember. One of the two of them said trigger when clicked.
Yeah, and for that you need a graphical object, something on the graph that can be clicked, that is shaded.
So you need something shaded that can be clicked.
Is there a way to shade a region?
There is a way to shade a geometric shape, so you can shade a rectangle.
Yeah, I was thinking about making a really big rectangle, one of whose sides is the line.
Yeah, I shook my head, but there is a thing called region.
No, don't do that yet.
Because I lied.
Come on.
Somebody might really want to use that.
I was going to get to it later, but now no one's going to want to pay attention to the fun way of doing things.
Fun.
Okay, before we get on with what needs to happen, we need to be introduced to conditional content, which is also very strong feature of Donut. So you can think of conditional content as an if-then in programming, even though Donut is not a programming language. So you have conditional content as an opening tag and a closing tag. Within conditional content are cases. So there's a case 1, a case 2, and a case 3. And you enter this case if a certain condition is satisfied. So I'm going to say condition equals what should we do? And what do I have already? X-intercept is greater than 0. Then we should say positive. And if x-intercept is negative, then we should say negative. So here you'll notice that the x-intercept is -1. So this conditional content goes into that part of the if-then structure and says, well, is it positive? No. Is it negative? Yes. Okay, then do whatever's inside here. So as I flip through them, well, there was one that was positive. Fair? Couple other things that need to be piped in before we do this. You can also define specific styles by doing style definition. So I'm going to create you always have to give it a new number. So I'm going to say style number equals 12. I don't know why I start at 12. I'm going to create a fill color of white. Now, think about the behavior. What do you want the user to see if they haven't clicked on something? Because the polygon is, dang it, the geometric shape is still going to be there. But what does the opacity of the fill of that shape need to be?
0.
So I'm going to start with a fill color of white, and I'm going to make the fill opacity. These are all the things that you can do with fill. And make it 0. Are we okay thus far? Now, this is how we're going to generate a shaded region, either to the left or to the right. Should it have a boundary?
I don't know because I'm not sure what you're going to do with it.
Okay, so imagine I have a dashed line here, and I want to click the region above this dashed line, right? When I do, I'm going to define a polygon, like you said. Should that polygon have a boundary on its edge? Because if it does, what happens here?
Okay, so no, it should not have a boundary.
So what should I make the line width? Zero, says Letty. Are we okay with that? Now we need another style definition. I'm going to call that 13. What is our favorite color? What do we want the shaded region to be?
Fuchsia.
Is that how you spell it?
I think so.
Don't hate me. And I'm going to make it darker than pink normally is by saying 0.5. I still want a line width of 0 because I don't want to see the border. Now you can imagine there's going to be a polygon. I'm going to make a triangle just because I don't want to have to putz around with the coordinates. So one coordinate is going to be on the line, or 2 points are going to be on the line, way to the left, way to the right. Where do you think the third point could be conveniently? So imagine I have this, and I have a dashed line. So one point is going to be way out here, outside the shape. There's going to be another point way here, outside the shape, or outside the visible window. Where should the third point be if we're making a triangle to keep things simple? So that if I'm shading up and to the left, I can capture it. If I'm shading down and to the right, I can capture it as well.
Could you intersect those like lines parallel to the axes and generate a point? Or
Or
I
just
don't know
like
if
at
that's
negative
possible.
10, 10?
Negative 10, 10 is going to be somewhere here, right?
Oh, sorry.
Can you have it
Oh,
match like
negative
the
10, 10 would be.
10, 10.
x-axis?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Negative 10, 10 would be up there in the upper left.
Letty, you were saying?
Well, I was just saying, like if you were gonna extend it, like have it match the x-axis for the point that you picked over here. I'm sorry, have it match the y-axis, and then over here have it match the x-axis, coordinate. Sorry, for the point that you have up here, have it match the x coordinate of this point and the y coordinate of this point. I don't know.
That could work. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. I'm just going to pick a really large y value and put it on the y-axis and pick a really small.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes more sense.
So it's just a very, very tall triangle in either direction. So we need a polygon. But before I do that, I need to define some points. I'm going to make a new point and just call it left.
And to make sure that we don't see that we're using a polygon to kind of hide it from the students, do we want to make this not draggable, like the graph, like fix the view on where we're looking currently? Because part of why I was thinking of defining it where it's like we pick something where we're a little further off the edge than is currently viewable on either side and draw like a big triangle that way. But the way we're doing it seems like we want to make sure that we can't like poke around and get off of our current view as is.
Any thoughts, Virginia?
I'm thinking this is like the second time they foiled your trap, and I think it's just beautiful.
I don't know if you guys are good students or bad ones because you're stealing my thunder here. But okay, we'll get there. But yes, you might be onto something. I'm just looking to see what I want to copy paste here, so not taking too much of your time. That's not it. That's not it. Point one. Okay, I'm not even going to define points. I think I just did this by way of polygon vertices. So let's start defining a polygon here. And I'm going to call this region above and region below. I want it to be filled. What should the style number be?
12 or 13, depending on which one is this.
Well, right now nothing has been shaded.
Above. So 13.
So, okay. And where are the vertices?
What if you did negative 12, comma, user line of negative 12?
I'm going to go a little farther out. All right, let's see what happens. Negative 12, comma, user line of... Oops. Negative 12. And then?
12, comma, user line of 12.
And the third vertex. If it's above...
I would do 12, negative 12, comma, user line of 12.
Yeah.
Just like 0, 30.
I'm gonna go with 030, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Only because I'm something should happen, and I want you guys to see what happens so you can fix it when you see that. Okay, where's the polygon?
Does this still have the transparent style?
Maybe. So what should we change to make sure that we see it?
Is 13 the transparent style or the filled style? I don't remember.
I think
13 is the
13
pink one.
is filled.
I'll give this one away because there's no visible indication why this is broken, and it took me about 47 minutes this morning to figure out what on earth was going on. Notice that there are no errors or warnings down here, which is why I thought I had done everything correctly. There's something specifically wrong with the syntax here.
No commas are, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And I hate that there's nothing telling me, hey, there should not be commas there. Why is there still no pink triangle? What can donut evaluate?
A function. User line's not a function. So do you
what
have to
needs be
define
the
a
case?
define
Go
a
ahead.
function in the setup?
Yep. So this needs to be user line F. And now this needs to get some capital F's. Hooray! There's our pink triangle. Now we know it's a triangle because if we zoom out, there it is. So how do we preserve the illusion that we have shaded everything north of the line?
Fix the oh, I can't remember the command. So that the graph can't be zoomed in or out.
So here I can say show navigation equals false,
Yeah.
but that doesn't prevent me from dragging it. It's gone. I'm going to increase the opacity just a bit so it's easier to view. So even in this view, you'll notice that there's some empty space here and then there's some empty space here. I don't want to dwell on this too much. You can say, okay, just make it go even higher. But there are going to be obvious issues that you can solve by adding another vertex, make it a bigger triangle. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. So I will let that be homework if you wish to engage in this further.
Fixed. Make the graph fixed. Does that do it?
Let's try it. Now the problem is I can't move the points.
Aha.
So if I fix graph, it's a static image. Nothing moves.
Fix y-axis and fix x-axis.
So yeah, what was it called? Fix axes, I think.
Fix axes, I
Oh.
think.
Oh, you can do both.
Yes. But then I can still drag this guy, which is what I think Cameron was pointing out. So I can obviously move this around.
Oh, no.
So the
But now I
polygon
can.
should also have the fixed attribute.
Should draggable equal
Yeah.
false?
So for the polygon, we should probably make, if I make it fixed, let's see what happens. So can I move it? Yes. Can I drag it? No. So that's one option, and I think Virginia was mentioning yesterday, if you want to repeat what you shared about the nuanced difference between draggable and fixed.
I wasn't here yesterday, but I will
Day
say
before?
another
Or maybe it was
reason.
Melissa.
Yeah, another reason not to do fix is you're gonna want to click on that region to turn it on and off. So fix means no attributes can be changed. But fix location is your lifesaver when it comes to graphing interactives, because that just means stick it there with a pin. But everything else can be changed. Draggable I almost never use anymore now that we have fixed location. It's just very limited.
I grew up on draggable, so I still use it, but fixed location is probably the upgrade to make. Okay, so now I have this polygon. I need a region below. And thankfully, I'm just going to change this vertex. So now I have two of these, the one above and the one below. But they're both showing. So what attribute that we discussed earlier allows us to not show things?
Hide.
So how would I use the hide condition here? I should hide this until when? Or
We need them to click on a point, and we need to collect that information when they click on the point, and then we need to input it there somehow.
well, the
So
points dragging are going to update automatically. We don't have to tell Donut to do that. That's the beauty of using references. So whenever the points move, the user line just gets calculated behind the scenes. So as I drag these points around, the triangles are moving.
yeah, no, I mean, we want to hide it. So if they click above the line, we want to hide the one below. And if they click below the line, we want to hide the one above. So somehow we need to collect the click points and test whether whether they match the equality or not.
Oh, I bet
Right.
once you click, because there is a secret polygon there, it will probably like know that you clicked that polygon, even without like detecting the coordinates where you clicked.
But
Nice.
I need them to go away for now. I don't want to see them until I click on them.
Maybe we should make them style 12 to start.
But then I won't get to use the hide conditions. There's a reason why I went along with whoever said make it style 13. I want us to practice hides, not just find the cheapest way home.
Create new Booleans for the whatever they are.
But what needs to be hidden? Like, I should hide these two triangles until when?
Until they're clicked, question mark.
Or, what's a proxy for that?
I don't know what you're looking for here.
Do we need the line drawn already? Is that part of
Okay,
this?
well, that seems like a procedural thing, right? You have to have the line first, and then I will allow you to change the style number, or the polygon should be hidden until you have a line that you've selected. So procedurally, line selection comes first, and then showing of the polygon, or clicking of the side comes second. Okay, so what should be the hide? Where'd my hide go? So hide what?
Hide when dashed, when not dashed, and not when dashed equal false and solid equal false.
All right, so it seems like this hide condition should work for both, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
All right, so now I don't see them. And if I click, nothing is happening, as nothing should. And if I click solid, well, then they both appear,
Mhm.
which is not the expected behavior, but at least to start, we don't see anything. And if I click dash, then they both appear as well, which is not expected behavior. But at least to start, we don't see either. Now start thinking about conditional content, about how you can change the value of something based on, I know I'm being vague here, but see if you can piece these two things together. You're going to need an update value that updates the value of the style number. And you're going to need a conditional content that says, if something has happened, then do this, and if something else has happened, then do this. I'll give you maybe a few minutes to think about this one because it gets to the heart of what's possible with Donut.
What about hmm. So we want them not to show until we click, right? We have to have the line drawn and we have to click.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to check is whether we want to check if the point that's clicked is above the student line or below the student line.
I'm going to pause there and remind you that there is an attribute of update value that tells you whether you have clicked on a geometric shape or not.
Is that the call action?
No, it's update value.
Update value.
So within update value, there is an attribute called trigger when objects clicked. So you don't need to know whether the point is above the x-axis or the point is below the x-axis, or below the line or above the line. You just need to know whether you clicked on the triangle on one side of the line or you clicked on the triangle on the other side of the line. So maybe I'll start you off. So we need to have an update value. We need to trigger when object is clicked. What object are we talking about being clicked?
The polygon, what did we call it? Above and below.
So we're going to have to do two of these, and they're going to be mirrors,
Region,
almost mirrors of each
yeah.
other. So region above, let's start with that. So something should happen when region above is clicked. What are we hoping to happen or change or affect when the region above is clicked?
Region above should unhide and region below should hide.
It's not just hide and unhide. We're making
it should
they're
toggle.
both actually visible at the same time, but we're making something invisible by filling it in with an opaque thing that has no border. Or not an opaque, a transparent thing that
And
has no
transparent, right? So it's changing the style. So
the style number,
yeah,
right?
the style.
So the target is going to be what? The region above dot style number. And is that N capitalized? Yes. And what should the new value be? If I'm clicking on it, what should we do?
Well, it depends on what its current value is.
And how, so then what do you need to do if you're going, if the current value is this, then do this, and if the current value is that, then do this?
Then it's going to be new value.
I'll bring you back to my question again. What structure in Donut allows you to say, if this happens, then do this, and if that other thing happens, then do this other thing?
I'm guessing it's conditional content.
Yes. So you can update values of things when something happens, and you can update them depending on what happened. Either update them to 12 if they were 13, or update them from to 13 if they were 12. So here, new value, I'm going to pause for a moment because I don't know what this new value needs to be. It needs to be derived from a conditional content output, right? So I'm going to come back to this in a moment. I'm just going to close this now. Now we need to have a conditional content. And what is happening in this conditional content? I have a condition. What are my two conditions?
Style 12, style 13.
So region above dot style number equals 12. And if it is 12, what should happen?
It should become 13.
And if it is 13, it should become 12. Will that make sense? Now, where is the output of this thing saved? Because this is just saying, if it is 12, make it 13. And if it is 13, make it 12. But who is it? How does Donut know what this 13 is referencing, or what that 12 is referencing?
Need to give the conditional content a name.
I'll twist what you said slightly. I want to give the 13 a name, or the 12 a name, not the conditional content itself, but the output of that conditional content has to be referenced by something. So 12 and 13 are types of what?
Integer.
Sure. Can I just give it a math name? And this was what? Style above, maybe?
Why a math when it could be a number or an integer?
Because I like math, and numbers are how the devil gets inside of you.
No.
Just leave me alone. Okay, now what should this new value be? We took a breather from the update value to say, I want to update the value when the region above is clicked, and I want to target the style number of the region above, and what should the new value be?
Style above.
Exactly. And this is very, very difficult to figure out unless, at least it was for me, incredibly difficult to just read the documentation and say, go figure this out. So some very nice people sat next to me and said, here's how the syntax works. And unless you're building it step by step, it's hard to just look at the finished product and say, oh, that's where that happened, or that's why that happened. Now, can we make a copy of this and do the same thing with region below? I'm going to affect region below's style number. And this is going to be style below. Style below is given by this. Are we okay thus far? What's the likelihood that this works?
You need to change your conditions to region below.
Dang it. Eagle eyes, all of you. Fine. What's the likelihood this works now?
50-50.
All right, let's try it. So, when x is 0, y is -4. When y is 0, x is 2. And I should shade here once I have a dash line. And what on earth happened? So I can turn them off individually so the clicky behavior is working. But what do I need to change now?
Initial set initial value or something like that.
All right, now I will make Clark happy and give him his 12 that he wanted. But if I gave him the 12 earlier, then I wouldn't be able to show you what happens if you had left it at 13. So now we go there, we make a dash line, we select this side, check work, voila. Are there other ways to do this? Absolutely. I don't think we have time for region between curves. But instead of making a triangle, what you can also do is make a horizontal line really, really high up at y equals 100 or really, really far down at y equals -100 and shade in the region between those two curves, between your tilty line and that horizontal line. So that'll shade everything and make it seem like you have, if you give it boundary points that are sufficiently far apart. That gets around with this issue of part of it not being shaded. Or you can be silly and say, oh, I'm going to make my triangles. This is obviously ill-advised, and you should not do that. But you can do that and make it really go really, really far down. Multiple ways of doing the same thing. Questions?
Guys did really, really complicated exercise there.
This is
both of us years to get to that point. So yeah.
This is quite convoluted, especially with nesting and encapsulation come very, very handy here, but being able to juggle back and forth, and hopefully you recognize also now that no one's sitting there and writing the thing chronologically correctly from the very beginning. You write something, then you go back and you put something in a setup, and then you say, oh, I need to do this next, and a lot of it is just scrolling back and forth. But yet, when we read other people's activities, we don't see that back and forth. You just see the sanitized version of everything is a neat setup component up top, and then things just seem to happen. So it's a fight. Do you keep things nice and clean, or do you keep things readable to the next person who wants to remix your activity?
And this problem's still not finished because the checking doesn't check which side is shaded.
How do
Right?
we add that?
Dang it.
And so what needs to be checked to see if you're on the right side of the line?
Region, well, since we only have one type of inequality, region below dot style equals 13.
Is it?
Right, style number.
Do I need quotes there, Virginia? No. All right. Dash line.
Okay.
If I select the other side, it's going to be false. If I don't select either, then it's going to be false. I have to select at least one.
Oh, but if you have both, is it
It's
it's still gonna
selected
say correct. Yeah,
because
it's still gonna
that's what
say
the Boolean logic says. So what do we need to also say?
region above style number is 12.
So these Boolean conditions become very, very important anytime you're using answer validation from graphs or if you're using select multiple within choice inputs. Because if you have 3 correct answers out of 5, and if you only check to see if those 3 are selected, students found this hack very early on where they would just select everything and it would always be correct. And I was like, how are people finishing this activity so quickly? It should take them forever because these are K-type questions, and only later on did I realize some nice student that the students hated later said, well, some of these have to be true, and we figured out if we select all of them, you always gave us credit. So those are things that you figure out after you get burnt once or twice. Or if you're Sean, you figure them out before you get burnt. Now, doorknob thing to consider. This answer validation, I would argue, is fairly tame. If you had randomized the placement of this, what would your answer validation look like? So if instead of less than, you had a greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. And what happens to all the answer checking, or not just the answer checking, does the source change in a meaningful manner, or is it just that the answer validation gets more complicated?
Also, I want to throw in that that is design choice, and you do not have to shoot yourself in the foot. You could just make 4 separate problems.
That's what
just...
I was trying to get them to see.
Oh,
That was the point of the question.
sorry.
But yes, that's what I was trying to get at eventually. That do you want to have increased complexity in your activity at the risk of not getting it to work exactly the way you want, or do you want to have 4 different versions and then copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, modify the the 2 or 3 places where the answers need to be changed, and now you have 4 working activities that you could give to students simultaneously, or you have 4 copies of the same type of question. But that becomes the author's choice. Do you want one question that does everything randomly for students, or do you want to have 4 reasonably equivalent questions that can be used interchangeably? Other thoughts or questions? That's the end of the rope for what I had planned. Virginia is next, but what comes to mind now that we're at the end of this activity?
Well, to your question of whether you make one complicated one or multiple very direct ones, is there a way to pull from those 4? Basically, I'm thinking about it, even though I know it's not a programming language, think of these as functions that I can randomly pick one of these four styles and then have it just modify what I need it to do, so I don't have to think so hard. Um, I don't know.
I'll let Virginia go first. My answer is I am not aware of any way to do it. That doesn't mean it's not possible. It just means I haven't done it. Virginia?
Yes. So I would do this the following way. I would create a module, which is another advanced sort of component. But if you tend to do things like that and to sort of like say, oh, I'm repeating this 4 times, so rather than copy and paste, I'm gonna do one thing up at the top, and then I'm just gonna define some properties, and like there's basically a way you can take what he's created, for example, and turn it into sort of like a stamp. So then you just have like your own kind of custom component that has all the stamp data in it, and then you just change a couple things. So that's totally possible. And then you can also do something really cool with select. So you can actually take and make a select component that has an entire activity inside one thing that's being selected. So that lives inside what are called options. So your option could be like one of those stamps. That sounds really complicated, but it's not as bad as it seems. There used to be on the website with the assignment builder tools, like a way to maybe, create 4 separate files and then create an assignment by selecting from one of those. And I think that feature set has been reduced. So it's not as simple to do that anymore. But yeah, there's ways to do it by kind of simplifying and consolidating, if that makes sense. Another way that comes to mind is you can sort of have things like different options in your setup kind of tied to conditional contents, and then they're all kind of tying back to sort of like a counter. And then your counter could be the select at the top, and you could just say select, n equals 1 through 4, and then the things inside your activity change based off whether they always change based off whether n is 1, 2, 3, or 4.
I am scared of modules. They're an advanced feature. I'm scared to use it because I never can get it to work. But this was created with conditional content and choice input. So you can select, it's the exact same problem, but dressed up in different contexts. So if you care about video games, you can click on that activity and then it will, why is it not working?
It's an old donut activity that got
It
brought
is.
up.
It might be broken because of the
Yeah.
new. Dang it. Okay. Imagine there being a problem there that you have to solve and work through. And if you wanted to turn it into a construction problem, then you can do the exact same thing. The numbers would be the same. The process of thinking about coming up with the equations and finding their points of intersection to solve the system would be the same, but it's just a different context. So instead of making this visible to the students, or maybe you do, you can say inequality with less than, inequality with greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. And I can show you the source. It looks complicated, but here are the choices. That's the choice input for which option you wish to select. And notice this is just the giant conditional content. You enter this case if you select the Last of Us option. So the Last of Us option has the entire activity within it. And if I collapse this, where did it go? If I collapse this, then you'll see the next activity, which you would enter if you selected the construction option. And here you're building a fence around a garden. It's the same exact thing, but you're just taking multiple copies of the same activity and saying, do you want to do the first one or do you want to do the second one? So that's one way to do it, where you can randomly generate things and get outputs for problems. This was a terrible idea. I never went back to this because students were like, no, we all want to do the same problem. What do you mean we get to choose our context? I thought this would be gold and no one appreciated it.
Uh,
I've been thinking about doing this because I have a lot of engineers, and
Mhm.
so having like different engineering types, like okay, you're a biomedical engineer, you're a mechanical engineer, like change things up based off of like their actual major or something. But yeah, I could see all the students wanting just like the same thing together in front of them.
They were preemptively offended because they said, what do you mean? Why couldn't we like the construction example?" And I said, no, I'm not making a judgment call of what you could not like. You pick the one you do, but they went a very different direction. Um, okay, I think it's a good time to switch over to accessibility. Do we want to take a very short break?
I was gonna suggest a break, and also, did you see the comments about the code? So could you share your source code uh, with the group, or
Oh,
maybe
yes, sure. Let me share the sanitized version. Um, yeah, let's take a break. I'll take the nicer version. I'll throw in some comments, even though you have a recording of it. But we'll resume at
4:20? I'm
so
giving a generous break. We don't have much left to cover, and that was brain
okay.
squashing. So,
So 20 minutes after the hour, we'll come
yeah.
back.
Okay. We are in the home stretch. That was the cool part. Uh, this hopefully will not be too painful. We're just gonna talk about accessibility. So give everybody about a couple minutes. So the first thing that I think we should do to save time is I made a little pop quiz. And if you don't know something, just file it away and then we'll go over it and we'll resolve anything that's confusing. But I feel like we've kind of been talking about accessibility mixed in with everything else a bit all week. So maybe you guys will just ace it. Also, I created an assignment and I haven't done this very much before, so hopefully it goes well. Because Anurag does it all the time. I haven't done it before. So 2 links in the chat. The pop quiz is the one that has code in the link. Give me a thumbs up if it like works and makes sense when you get there. Okay. So on each of these, oh, it might just show you everything because I probably forgot to take away the reveal all in the cascade. But try and do the question and do the little code snippet as well, even though it'll give you the green whether or not you do the code snippet.
This might just be me, but am I stuck in dark mode or Cameron's there too?
Yeah, your activity came up for me in dark mode. But
Mine
yeah, this
or
one has black
Virginia's?
on both. Although yours shows up with like white text on a black background. This one is black text on an almost black background.
Yeah, mine's running on dev. So I guess I can change that about my activity, but Virginia, I'm not sure how to fix that. Yours.
I'm actually dealing with a completely unrelated problem first, and that is my Google Chrome is frozen solid, and I can't remember. There's like a Control Alt Delete equivalent on a Mac, and I always forget what it is, so I have it like on a sticky note. Oh,
Command Option Escape.
thank you.
All right. If you refresh my activity, it should go back to regular light background, I think now.
Strangely enough, it froze immediately again when I reopened it and went to donut.org. So, um, how are we doing on the quiz? I might have to hop off and restart my computer.
Could
Still
you
working
use
on it?
Safari or something?
Uh, I think I'm going to do.
I
Okay, if
have
people are
things
still
I can do
working.
to fill in time if you want to try restarting.
Yeah, are people still working on the quiz?
Oh, I don't know that.
Okay, so since we have a little bit of time, I'll just do that. Come right back. Okay, it appears to be working now. So hopefully you guys were at least able to get started on the pop quiz. And just so that we get through things in time, I'm gonna quickly go through just some thoughts on each of the different areas. And I'll also share like sort of a finished version of this as well. Let's see. Share my screen. You guys have to watch me navigate through. Sorry. Accessibility. Okay. Um, so graphs, I guess you guys have, I guess, been working with the little green man, right? Has it been discussed at all this week? Like, what does the green man mean and the purple?
You should talk about it.
Okay, I wasn't sure if
Assume
that
nothing.
had come up before. Okay. So, one of the best things about working in Donut is that the way that it helps you create accessible content. And so there's these tools that are built into the editor, which will alert you when something is off. And if you have this green man, it means you've satisfied everything that's like an automated check. It doesn't necessarily mean you've made it completely accessible document or activity, because there's a lot of things that go into authoring that can make something inaccessible but not show up. But it's a really great like first place to start. And as long as you know that it's green, you can submit it to the library, and it's a good starting point. So we'll go over some of the ways that it can maybe be green and there could be a problem. But this is a great thing to see. And if you see this purple button, so this is weird because it's a window within a window. But as you can see, this one's purple, this one's purple, this one's purple, purple. But here we have green, and I'm telling you something needs to be fixed. So that's kind of what I meant by what I said earlier. So purple means you have some violations in the accessibility checker. And I can't show you, I guess I can't show you here. You go to this little man, and if this main document had any violations, if this button was purple, then whatever caused that to be purple would be listed here. And then you can see the line number, and it'll tell you what needs to be changed. And you can go through and do it line by line until you get green. So probably the most complicated thing to make perfectly accessible is graphs. Images are not that complicated, but graphs, there's like a lot of different components and they act differently perhaps than you might expect. And we've kind of talked about inputs already. So the first thing here is to know that you always have to have a short description with a graph. A description is a helpful thing to add to your graph, and what it does is it creates a little eye bubble for more information. And then that's nice because it's also visible to sighted users. So let's say you want to give some precise information and you want sighted users and people who are using screen readers both to be able to access it. So it just kind of like a little pop open. So it's confusing because description and short description sound similar, and they can contain very similar information, but this is not something that's going to be picked up by the accessibility checker and say, yep, that graph has been, it's been given alt text, basically. So the equivalent to what you might have heard as alt text for an image is a short description for a graph. So the short description is something that I will play for you guys so you can hear what it sounds like. But if once you have the short description that you add and you nest it inside your graph, it can go anywhere. It's going to be read out by the screen reader, and it's like alt text for an image. So any questions on that so far? Kind of make sense? So I'm going to say here is a line given by equation. And then I'm just going to reference line dot equation. And we'll see what that sounds like. And we'll also see what happens when I update this. So I got the green man, and that's great. So if I went down here, well, it still says none found. I wonder why it hasn't one. That's kind of strange. So I have never done the voiceover within the code editor within the window, but we're gonna hope that it works. And hopefully it's not too loud. Accidentally. Try this again. Can you guys hear that all right? Don't hear anything? Okay, let me see.
Did you select the option to share audio when you shared Zoom?
Take my headphones off and make sure my audio. Let's just try this again here.
Accessibility check.
Can you hear anything now? Okay, cool. So you don't have to do this. I'm just sharing it with you so you can tell where my recommendations are coming from.
As keyboard focus.
Okay.
You are currently on a group inside of article. Figure 1, here is a graph. Figure 1, here is a graph. Figure. Here is a line given by equation y equals x plus 2 image. You are currently on an image. To begin interacting with the contents of this image, press Control, Option, Shift, down arrow. More information, collapsed, disclosure triangle, group. Here is a line given by equation y equals x plus 2 image. Voiceover off.
Okay. So did everyone kind of see what happened there? So the short description, you won't see it. Sometimes if there's something specific that I want not to just be screen reader read, but also visible, I will actually have in the short description, here's a graph of a line, see the disclosure triangle below the graph, or see the the information below the graph for more information. So you're pointing the screen reader user to click this bubble, and you can do that. Like you can interact with this with the screen reader as well. So you're basically telling the screen reader user there's more below, and then you can put something below that gives a lot of detail. Now, it actually came through much better than I thought when it read this equation. It read all of the symbols. But one thing that I would caution you about is, first of all, you cannot use an M tag anywhere in the short description. And think of it as really just being capable of reading text. So anything complex, any references to things that aren't translatable simply into text are kind of, I would stay away from those. Like, it can take references of numbers, but other than that, it's pretty limited. So let's just check the chat real quick. Yes, but that's not something that you would use for a graph. So yes, labels are great for inputs, but the kind of the equivalent, I guess, for the way I see it for a graph is that description. So a lot of times what I will do, let's say I have like several states of a graph. I have a simple interactive, and I know that at first there's not going to be anything that the students can glean from it because I haven't done any work yet. So my description, my short description will say, hey, nothing's happened yet. Okay, this is a blank graph. You need to enter information. And then there'll be a conditional content that changes what's actually being given in the description. And since you guys know about conditional content, you just use it. You can heard it. You could use it here, and basically you define some stuff that changes based off of the interactions that they've used. And the short description then just points them to that. And then, so you have a lot more freedom within the description to use M tags and make references to things that are more complicated. Okay, so that's sort of a lot of information on graphs. If you have something static and simple, just put something in the short description. and try and make it so that you have a green man. Inputs, do we have any questions about inputs? Were you guys able to answer those, fix those code challenges at all? Do you want me to discuss inputs?
On part 2, did you want the answer to be short description?
Let's see. Yes, exactly. So label is
Because it's not in the dropdown.
oh my gosh, yeah. I did this right beforehand. Thank you for catching that. I wonder what it was. What did I call correct? Yeah. My apologies, guys. That's
Yeah, I think you copied the
yeah.
drop down from the other one.
You're right. It should be a short description. And what I would typically do there is in this case, sighted users can just look at it and see two boxes. So it's obvious, okay, I'm not like putting in a list of numbers in one box. I have two boxes, one number per box, right? But that's not as obvious when you're reading with a screen reader. You could kind of sequentially get to the first box and it might be ambiguous, right? So I just kind of think through what is someone who is reading this document going to, what kind of information might they need? So a lot of times in here, I would do, if I was in this kind of situation, I would say, first, enter first prime number or first number that's divisible by 2. And then the second one, or 1 of 2, 2 of 2. So that's the kind of thing, because you already had visually, you had the context, and you had the problem statement. You didn't really need a label either. So you can do it like that. Any questions on the short description for an input? You want to hear what it sounds like? Or think you can trust me. Just kind of reads math input box. If anybody wants to, let me know. So I think it gets a little bit, you should think of Boolean inputs, choice inputs, sliders. I think they always have a label, that's like baked into the slider. But if you see input in the component name, chances are you're going to need to add a label child to it. And then that will take care of these accessibility violations. Oh, I can show you here what these look like too. So pull up the screen and it says line 2, and then it'll tell you where that issue is. It'll tell you what it needs. And then once you start nesting math inputs or choice inputs inside your answer tag, then answer blanks basically have the same accessibility criteria and requirements, but it can get a little bit confusing where you put the label or the short description. So basically, if you don't have an input that's nested inside, and we might not have done very much of this in this workshop, but for example, here, I don't have anything nested inside, so I can just stick it anywhere. I can stick my label right here. And then typically what I'll do is I'll just take whatever that preamble was, left-hand side of the equation, whatever it is that I used to put out beforehand, I'll just drop that in the label. And then as you can see, it'll just, maybe that's not what I wanted to do because I wanted to ask for X. Okay, so in this case, slightly different, because I'm not paying attention. This, ooh. So I'd have something like, and then get rid of this. Okay, so here I'm just, without an input, I can just nest that in there. And then I have, it's checking for 2. And that's the most simple format that you could have, basically. But if you have a nested math input, Then you're going to want to put that label inside the input. So you might say, well, when would I use that? Well, sometimes you give your math input a name. And so then in your Boolean, like in your award condition down here, you might say when the user input equals blah, 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 or is less than, if you have some complicated Boolean logic checking, it's nice to have like a reference. And so that's why you might have a nested input. And that's why in here is where you would want to stick that label. So it just becomes anything nested inside that's an input inside of your answer choice input is the same, then you would just put the label inside there. Okay. So pause for a second there. Does that make sense? I'll put this here. Is this too small? It's probably too small. Take that. And now we got a green man. Okay, so I think for list, the nice thing about them is everything comes pre-built. So if you use the components that are available to you, and this kind of goes for all the components in DonutML, there's a lot of things that you get for free. You get hierarchical header structure. If you do sections and exercises and problems, all those sectional components, and if you nest any of them, you're going to automatically get like your header structure correct because Donut does that all for you. So you never have to think, oh, I need an H1 and I didn't use an H2, so I'm going to get a violation there. So that's one really nice thing. You basically, for most cases, except for graphs and inputs, you don't even have to think about it. So just use what's already there. And instead of if you find yourself doing something semantically like this, instead see if there's a component that does it. So the component that does what we did here is an unordered list. And if you do it this way, it will read it as, an unordered list, and the screen reader will say, give the listener exactly the information that they need. So I don't know what it says for unordered list, but for ordered list, it says, list item 1 of 3 and 2 of 3 and 3 of 3. So it's very clear.
And can you change it so that if for whatever reason the author wanted to put an asterisk there instead of like a bullet point or something, is there a way to change the symbol?
Not yet. And that is the kind of thing that feature-wise, it's totally, I don't think Dwayne cares. And it seems like that would be an easy tweak to make. You could just add an attribute to say, change the symbol. You can change the level, you can't change it in an unordered list, but you can change it in an ordered list. So in an ordered list, you can say, if I update this here, it starts with 1, 2, 3, but if you do level equals 2, and this isn't like very obvious, it'll change. And level equals 3, I think, is Roman numerals. It's going in like the outline structure, classical. But yeah,
I think that's
that,
what LaTeX follows.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys know all that already. And so it's one of those things that if you make a GitHub issue, and we can show you how to make those if we haven't talked about that yet, but those actually are more meaningful when it comes from outside authors. So we encourage everyone with an idea to pester Dwayne and all the other developers, because I already have many outstanding issues of things that I want, but that seems like an easy one. Links, I'm sure you guys have heard about this in all of your other accessibility worlds of things that you've been exposed to, but you want to try and have link text that is descriptive, because the screen reader will actually, you can navigate basically all of the links in a document, and there's ways you can kind of like get to what you want fast. But if in that list it just says here, it's not helpful. right? So it's important to have descriptive link text. And in I don't know if we have done anything with the reference component so far, so I just wanted to show this is what the syntax looks like, and then you would change it here to whatever, go to Wikipedia bird article or something. Anything that is more descriptive than here, basically, and not the URL, because that sounds terrible. So that's like the broad basics. And then I can show you some fun things depending on, oh, we do not have time for fun things. Okay, so
If you send me links, I can add them to the wrap-up email.
yeah, I will show you some really cool things that Dwayne has developed. Basically we are kind of pushing the very edge of what's possible for interactive things being accessible. So this is an unsolved problem. No one really knows what to do with the fact that if you're moving things around, how do you address that with a screen reader? And so it's really kind of cool the things that he's come up with. In some cases, you have a set of controls next to the graph, and you can interact with those controls and move points around and stuff with sliders, and all of that is able to be read by the screen reader. There's the thing I was describing earlier where you can kind of have a conditional content and adapt the description based off of changes. And then there's something called prefigure, which you can now do within Donut, and that will allow you to actually enter the graph, navigate with keystrokes throughout the graph, and it'll read annotations that you've specified about the graph. So it's very interactive. It even kind of like zooms into the features that you're looking at, that you tab to or that you navigate to, and it zooms in on them. So if it's like someone with low vision, they'll see like all the features that are being highlighted and spoken about really clearly. So there's some really exciting stuff. But that's accessibility in Donut. Any questions? Okay, you guys are amazing.
And
It's a
I'm going to take
marathon
just
today.
a couple of minutes to wrap up. All right, we're back to where we started. Here's the Donut website. I'm just going to go over very, very quickly. Oh, by the way, Dwayne and company were able to get us moved over to justdonut.org. So if you bookmarked beta, it will still automatically forward, but now we're back home. We were exiled to beta land, and now we're welcome back into just plain donut.org. If you need help, the documentation can be accessed obviously through that question mark or down below in the context-sensitive help. You attended a workshop, or you're attending a workshop, but future workshops and reunions and all manner of fun things are on this events page. We will be at MathFest sharing a mini course, but if you're there and want to connect and just have a quick meal or a coffee or just hang out and chat, would love to see you. Community discussions, you've already shared a couple of things in, so I won't tell you more about it. It's just a place to have conversations outside. But I did want to talk about a couple of things. So, as with any community, we're trying to grow this one. There are multiple specific groups that already exist. So there are a couple of people that work on documentation, and if you don't like the way it looks, we encourage you to join these groups so you can affect change from the inside. And right now, it's mostly Dwayne just doing all these things, and he's got 24 hours in his day, unfortunately. So we would love to get him help, and therefore us ourselves. There's a curriculum group, which I think has made quite a bit of noise, which we'll talk about soon. The training group does things like Virginia and I are doing, and Melissa and Dwayne did. So if you find it compelling to hang out with other cool math people like yourselves in the evenings in the summer or during the fall or the spring, come join us. The communications group is fairly light. They reach out to folks and do things. Software group, they do development stuff. So when people like me say, hey, we want user-defined snippets, that request goes to the software group, which is really just Dwayne and Charles right now, and Jason Siefkin, and a couple other people that accidentally joined that group. And then accessibility is, well, led by Virginia and Dwayne. That group is fairly light in its membership, but if that's something that you find compelling, feel free to join them. One quick plug for the curriculum group. I think I mentioned these earlier, but here's a formal link, and I will urge you to fill it out. We have two types of ways that you can get involved and stay involved. Proofing rooms is one, authoring via test kitchens is another. Proofing rooms are really just silent working groups. If you want committed time on your calendar to say, my day gets away from me, I just want something on my calendar that I can just join Zoom and co-work with other people in silence, you're welcome to do that. Test kitchens are more active development. We make something during the week or not, bring it to 2 or 3 other people to discuss, get pedagogical feedback, and hopefully get a publication out of it eventually. But these are the proofing rooms that are currently ongoing. There's some test kitchens that are ongoing. Here's where you can share your time zone when you are available. Previously, you had to fill out a survey for each test kitchen you were interested in, which was painful. But now you can just do this once, and like when is good, you can paint over times that you're available. Select what types of things you're interested in, type in your name, type in your email. When you click submit, those preferences come to me. And then if there's a bunch of you that are all teaching, dynamical systems and stochastic processes, then I would say, hey, you guys all seem to be available at 2 p.m. on Friday afternoon. Would you like to stand up a pod? So Donut does all the matchmaking on our end, but you just need to share your preferences. I encourage you to do that. And now with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and share 2 forms with you. This one's fairly short. If any of those groups sound interesting or compelling, you're welcome to join it or fill out your information and we'll be in touch. And please, please, please give us feedback. This is the 4th iteration of the workshop, and it's changed drastically based on the feedback we've gotten in each iteration. So we want to make sure that these experiences are meaningful, especially since we're spending so much time doing it. Might as well make it be useful. So if you don't mind, at your convenience, fill out that survey. Give us feedback on what went well, what could be done differently or better, or what we should try to do in the future. Last doorknob thing, and it just hit 6 p.m., we will have a reunion at 3 p.m. on Tuesday. You're more than welcome to come back and think of a project, even if it's just a rough idea and you don't have a working donut activity. But if you've been thinking about what you might want to do, we'd love to hear about it. So office hours for Donut are from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. You're welcome to come anytime you like, but 3 p.m. will be the official invitation time. That being said, you're welcome to join us at 2 p.m. if you like. Virginia, any closing remarks?
Not really. It's just really exciting to see so many new users this summer. Everything has really blossomed, I feel like. And we're starting to have a super active community. So it's a good time to be getting involved. And you can also still kind of mold the course of the project and that I think is exciting. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, 3 hours in the evening, 4 days in a row is not easy. So thank you for making the commitment to stick around and being a very active audience. That was I know Dwayne mentioned that, and not Virginia, Melissa mentioned it yesterday as well, that it's been exciting to have a very participative audience. So thank you for attending, and hopefully you learned something and had fun while you learned stuff.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll see you around.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.